When we think of who shapes history, we imagine kings, presidents, and generals. But often, the real power has no crown, no throne, and no army. Instead, it sits quietly in counting houses, in bank vaults, and in boardrooms. Among those who held this hidden power were Jewish bankers. They financed wars, built railroads, and even created America's central bank. What makes their story so shocking is this: some of them served America, and others served Germany. Even while those nations stood on opposite sides of history, how could one family, one network, straddle both sides of the battlefield? To answer that, we have to go back to Europe in the 18th and 19th centuries. For centuries, Jewish communities faced restrictions. They were banned from owning land, excluded from guilds, and locked out of politics. But money lending, one of the few occupations allowed, became not just survival, but mastery. Over generations, Jewish families developed networks of credit that spanned across countries. And from this came dynasties. The Rothschilds, the Warburgs, Kuhn and Loeb, and Jacob Schiff. These names would rise to dominate global finance. The Rothschilds were the first to prove what was possible. Meyer Amschel Rothschild of Frankfurt had 5 sons, and he sent each one to a major European capital: London, Paris, Vienna, Naples, and Frankfurt. Together, they created an invisible web of information and finance. In the early 1800s, when communication was slow, the Rothschilds' couriers carried news faster than kings or generals. During the Napoleonic Wars, their speed gave them the advantage. They could move money and buy bonds before anyone else knew the outcome of battles. By the mid-19th century, they were called the bankers of kings. But while the Rothschilds were Europe's financial empire, another family, the Warburgs of Hamburg, began to rise. Their bank, Warburg, became one of Germany's most respected institutions. And here the story becomes fascinating. One Warburg brother, Max, stayed in Germany, advising Kaisers and later the Weimar Republic. Another, Paul Warburg, left Europe for the United States. Paul was brilliant. He saw that America's financial system was unstable, prone to panics like the crash of 1907 in New York. He pushed for a central bank, something Americans feared but desperately needed. In 1913, Paul Warburg's vision became reality. He became one of the architects of the Federal Reserve, America's central banking system, which remains the most powerful financial institution in the world today. Think about that. A German-born Jewish banker, in less than a decade, reshaped American finance forever. But at the same time, across the ocean, his brother Max Warburg was advising Germany's government, the very country that America would fight against in World War I. One family, 2 brothers, shaping the financial strategies of 2 nations at war with each other. It sounds like fiction, but it's true. And the Warburgs weren't alone. In America, Jacob Schiff of Kuhn, Loeb & Co. financed the expansion of railroads, fueling the industrial rise of the United States. But he also used his wealth for international causes. In 1905, he gave loans to Japan during its war with Russia, tipping the balance of power in Asia. Schiff's money crossed borders more easily than any army ever could. By now, Jewish bankers had become central to global finance. But power always attracts suspicion. As the Rothschilds, Warburgs, and Schiffs grew in wealth, so did conspiracy theories. Pamphlets and newspapers claimed they secretly controlled governments, manipulated wars, or engineered. The truth was simpler. They were opportunists and visionaries, driven by profit and stability, not by loyalty to one flag. Yet, in times of crisis, perception often matters more than reality. The 1920s and 1930s changed everything. Germany, defeated in World War I and humiliated by Versailles, sank into economic despair. Max Warburg, still in Germany, advised the fragile Weimar government. But when the Nazis rose to power in the 1930s, everything turned. Despite his years of service, Max Warburg, like other Jewish bankers, was forced out. The very nation he had served turned violently against him. He fled Germany, his family bank stripped of power in America. However, Paul's legacy continued. The Federal Reserve became the backbone of U.S. finance, steering the nation through the Great Depression and World War II. So, what do we make of this? The Jewish bankers who served both America and Germany weren't traders or masterminds. They were part of an international class of financiers who saw opportunity across borders. Their loyalty was to finance itself. They believed money had no nationality, and in many ways, they were right. Money moved where governments could not, bridging continents, even when nations were at war. Yet, their story also carries tragedy. The Warburgs and others gave their expertise to nations that later turned on them. Their success made them both admired and hated, and their power, real or exaggerated, made them the subject of endless myths. Today, their legacy is complicated but undeniable. The Rothschilds, though less dominant, remain symbols of global finance. The Warburg name lives on in institutions. The Federal Reserve, Paul Warburg's brainchild, still controls America's money supply, and Jacob Schiff's philanthropy helped build hospitals, schools, and charities that endure to this day. The lesson is clear. Nations rise and fall. Wars begin and end. But the flow of money never stops. Those who master it can shape history, even across enemy lines. The Jewish bankers who served America and Germany remind us that finance is bigger than borders. It can build, it can destroy, and it can outlast even the most powerful empires. In the end, perhaps the most extraordinary part of the story is not that Jewish bankers served both America and Germany. It is that they revealed the truth we often forget. Power doesn't always wear a uniform or carry a sword. Sometimes, the greatest power is silent, invisible, and measured not in armies, but in numbers.